An ancient shroud, an enigmatic face, and a story that no one can prove or disprove. A piece of linen that bears the marks of a mystery that has defied centuries. They say this is the cloth that covered the body of Christ. But who are they? And why should we believe them? Today, you'll discover what science really found when analyzing the shroud, and why those findings continue to divide opinions to this day. What you're about to hear might change the way you see one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Stay with us until the end to uncover the most surprising evidence ever found in the shroud. If stories like this spark your curiosity, consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any controversial topics. And don't worry about hitting the like button just yet. Save it for the end if you feel the video is worth it. Before diving into the controversies, we need to understand, what exactly is the Shroud of Turin? It's a piece of linen, 4.4 meters long and 1.1 meters wide, kept in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy. The most astonishing detail, it bears the image of a man with crucifixion marks, wounds on the wrists, feet, and on the side of the body, just as described in the Gospels about the death of Jesus Christ. The shroud is venerated as one of Christianity's most important relics, yet it's also shrouded in historical mystery. Documented for the first time in the 14th century, it has been the subject of disputes between believers and skeptics ever since. And there's something else that makes the shroud even more intriguing. In 1898, it was photographed for the first time by an Italian photographer named Secondo Pia. When developing the photo, Pia realized that the shroud was a perfect photographic negative, something nobody expected. This means that, unlike a painting or a simple mark, the actual image only becomes clear when viewed as a negative, like an old film photo. This characteristic alone separates it from any other known historical artifact. But one mystery has never been solved. The shroud's verifiable historical record begins only in the 14th century in France. Before that, there are only fragments of accounts and hypotheses about its whereabouts. The official story claims it was rescued after the crucifixion and passed through apostles and nobles over the centuries. But how can we explain more than 1,000 years of silence? This gap in its narrative, combined with the shroud's extraordinary properties, makes it one of the greatest enigmas in both religious and scientific history. For millions of Christians, the shroud is more than just an artifact. It's a tangible connection to the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The image on the shroud represents a man who endured intense suffering. There are scourge marks across the body, cuts on the scalp resembling a crown of thorns, and the wound on the side of the torso, likely caused by a lance. But the shroud doesn't just speak of suffering. It is also seen as a symbol of hope. For believers, it's physical and visual proof of a transcendent event, Christ's resurrection. This powerful message is what draws millions of pilgrims to Turin during the rare public displays of the shroud. The shroud's impact, however, extends beyond Christianity. Many see it as an invitation to reflect on the mysteries of life, death, and the unknown. It transcends religious boundaries, with some regarding it as a universal symbol of human suffering and spirituality. And then there's the position of the Catholic Church. While it treats the shroud as a sacred relic, the Church has never officially declared it authentic. This caution may seem contradictory, but it's actually a way to preserve its relevance, both for faith and scientific study. This balance between faith and doubt is part of what keeps the shroud so powerful. It reinforces belief for many, but it also challenges the limits of what we can prove or understand. The Shroud of Turin is also one of the most studied relics in modern science, and each discovery seems to generate even more questions. In 1988, 3 laboratories conducted carbon-14 dating tests and concluded that the fabric was medieval, dating back to between 1260 and 1390. This finding led many to dismiss the shroud's authenticity. How could it have wrapped the body of Jesus Christ if it didn't even exist at the time? But shroud defenders raised important questions. Did the analyzed samples truly represent the original fabric? The hypothesis that the tested fragments came from patches added after fire damage gained traction. These repairs, done centuries later, could have contaminated the dating process. Moreover, there are characteristics of the shroud that continue to baffle scientists. The image contains no pigments or paints and is formed by a superficial discoloration of the fibers, something that no one has been able to reproduce. Three-dimensional studies have revealed anatomical details that can only be observed with modern equipment. There's also biological evidence. Chemical tests detected traces of human blood with signs of hemoglobin and ferritin, which indicates severe trauma. For skeptics, this might have been artificially created, but so far no one has explained exactly how. One of the most controversial theories suggests that the image was formed by radiation emitted during Christ's resurrection. While this theory is rejected by most scientists, it continues to intrigue both scholars and believers. In the end, the shroud challenges both science and faith. Each discovery seems to create new questions, and the mystery remains unsolved. The Shroud of Turin doesn't escape alternative theories and criticisms. For many skeptics, it's simply a medieval forgery, created in the 14th century to attract pilgrims and generate donations. Bishop Pierre d'Arcy even wrote that the shroud was painted by a skilled artist who allegedly confessed to the forgery. Other researchers suggest that the shroud was created using advanced techniques for its time, such as heated molds or a primitive form of photography using sunlight and chemicals. However, these explanations face challenges. None have successfully replicated the shroud's three-dimensionality and the superficial discolorations of its fibers. And there are even bolder hypotheses. Some believe the shroud could have wrapped the body of a crucified man, but not necessarily Jesus. This would explain the bloodstains and wounds, but doesn't clarify how the cloth was preserved and came to be so revered. On the other hand, some see the shroud as a symbolic work, created to represent the Passion of Christ without the intention of deceiving anyone. This perspective suggests it was designed as a devotional object, rather than deliberate fraud. Ultimately, the alternative theories only deepen the enigma. The more we try to explain it, the more the shroud seems to elude definitive answers. And in the end, the Shroud of Turin remains exactly as it began, a mystery. For some, it's tangible evidence of a miracle that science will never explain. For others, it's a brilliant fraud that has fooled the world for centuries. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, or perhaps it will never be found. What we do know is that the shroud continues to provoke questions that go beyond the cloth and the image. It forces us to confront our beliefs, seek answers, and above all, grapple with the unknown. Now I ask you, what do you think? A miracle, a hoax, or something even more surprising? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into mystery, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep exploring fascinating stories like this. And if you think this video was worth it, leave a like. It helps us bring you more content like this. See you in the next mystery.